I'd like to introduce you to Monia Benini. She's leader of the Common Good Party in Italy. She's a political activist, an author, and does many interviews for a TV company. I first met Monia last December at an international conference in Athens, which was to discuss national currency, democracy, and debt economy. Many attendees were there, representing from the Republic of Ireland, Iceland, Finland, France, Italy, Spain, Cyprus, and even Russia, and of course Greece. And Monia spoke very, very well in regard to Italy leaving the EU, but I will let Monia explain it herself and what she represents, and also maybe a piece of her history. Monia.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to bring you the greetings of my party, the political movement of liberation per il bene comune. And then thank you for your kind invitation to participate to this important meeting. It's a great opportunity for me to explain the situation of my country facing this European dictatorship, and at the same time to understand better British reality. I come from a nation, let me call Italy a nation, even if EU has done scorched earth around us. I come from a country where people had been leading to a contemporary form of slavery. A dictatorship run by structures such as the European Central Bank and the European Commission, through weapons like onerous treaties, binding memorandum of understanding, austerity, fiscal compact, European stability mechanism, debt, or European redemption fund. They went to disturb also the biblical psalms to hang us. The former Italian Premier, Mario Monti, said that crises are useful to give more power to EU, so it can appropriate of member sovereignty. Yes, it said that. Actually, it also said that the bigger success of Euro was Greece, and he made this statement while that country was facing a restricted default and people were losing their houses and their jobs. As a matter of fact, EU has stolen our sovereignty, monetary, economical, and national sovereignty. And you know what? In Italy, it was made against our constitutional chart, and with a decree that imposes state secret on the entire road to Euro. And somebody talks about the EU as a cradle of democracy. With the Treaty of Maastricht, the Italian government gave the keys of the house to the ECB, from the money printing to the direction of economic policies, in the name of parameters decided on the progress of the German mark, the EU German mark. In 2000, Giuliano Amato, former Prime Minister and later Vice President of the European Constitutional Convention, said, "One must act as if in Europe, as if one wanted only very few things in order to obtain a great deal, as if nations were to remain sovereign in order to convince them to surrender their sovereignty. The Commission in Brussels, for example, must act as if it were a technical organism in order to operate like a government." And so on, camouflaging and toning down. So, before the Treaty of Lisbon, and even before the European Constitution was rejected by referendum in France and in the Netherlands, the EU powerful minds began to tease people. And they admitted it too, like Amato did. Until 80s, Italy was a G7 member with a low rate of employment, with a good welfare and with growing export results. When we finally bound hand and foot to euro, a rapid descent began, or perhaps I should say that a rapid rise began, the rise of debt. With the blackmail of debt, EU has managed to impose on countries such as Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Cyprus, Greece, the Memorandum of Understanding, a real instrument of torture in the hand of European masters and of the governments part of this non-democratic system. The Troika requires all countries under memorandum continuous lays-off, privatizations, and sell-off national assets, cuts in wages, salaries, and pensions, control regimes that destroy the national ability of government. The states no longer exist, robbed of their sovereignty, their independence, and their ability to conduct political, economic, social, and cultural independent choices. With a global structure based on money that is inherently debt, the ECB may tighten the noose around the neck of states, if one can speak of states given the European dictatorship, and decide how to occupy in a contemporary way the chosen victims. It's a new kind of war, waged by a structure made of persons who are not democratically elected, but appointed within an elite and above a brand, the EU brand, who act as a contemporary army against the peoples of Europe. I think to Italy, to my country, dragged within this European dictatorship with accounting tricks, with a nightly compulsory levy on current accounts, and even with a state secret imposed by Dini's technical government in 1995. And everything was set to fulfill the roadmap designed within the European Economic Community in 1970 by Pierre Werner Commission, which provided the ultimate goal of the European Union, a single currency, today the euro, to be saved at all costs, as Draghi said. Britain had been away from it, and it had been a very wise decision. But the opting out was not enough to save sovereignty. It's not just a matter of euro, it's the whole EU construction that imprisoned our countries. Let's think to the monstrous power of the European Commission, with director generals unelected, that can rule for very long periods, and it won't be a direct election of the EC president to change this institution. In Italy, we perfectly know their power. Our farmers cannot cultivate what our lands traditional could produce. Our breeders have milk quotas taxes. Our fishermen have to disrupt their activities. The labor market is disintegrated by EU rules and by a very high income of desperate people who come mainly from Africa and Middle East. An immigration that, of course, local authorities are totally unable to cope. While young people are emigrating abroad and more workers are fired, in Rome or Milan or in other big cities, it is possible to find older people, but not only older people, rummaging in garbage cans to find something to eat. Artisans and traders must adapt to directive resolutions that deplete them. The industrial production is controlled and broken up and sacrificed to the dictates of certain structures like EU, that clearly do not operate in the interests of our peoples. For example, last year in Italy, 304 companies have closed every day, every single day, also during Christmas and Easter. Every 2 days and a half, a person has committed suicide because of the situation imposed by EU. The decisions taken by a series of prime ministers not elected by people like Monti, Letta, Renzi, are nothing more than the clear execution of accurate impositions diplomatically delivered to Italy in November 2011 by Olli Rehn. I've got the letter. It's an official letter by Olli Rehn, by the European Commission. And it described a questionnaire. It's a questionnaire, questions, 39 points in questions. It talks about spending review, fiscal consolidation, pension legislation, budget rule, and also taxes, of course, about consumption, immovable properties, profits, but also about the economical, political choices, and also about the labor market, and also about competition, but more and more justice, infrastructure and construction, constitutional reforms. One said, oh, interesting, a questionnaire about this point, interesting. It's not a questionnaire, because it starts with this point. Please provide an annotated version of the letter that indicates for each major commitment whether, first, it is already being enacted, if so, indicate progress with its implementation. Second, it is already adopted by the government but not yet approved by Parliament. If so, clarify the timing of parliamentary approval of its implementation. Or third, it's a new commitment. If so, provide a concrete action plan for adoption and implementation, including timelines and the type of legal instruments the government intends to use. Is this a questionnaire? No. It's a compulsory act. You have to do these things. No sovereignty. The different governments just can obey to EU dictatorship. European Commission and the European Central Bank decide for us, and they rule by people not elected by us, not elected by our citizens. Today we have the euro, and some countries have been keeping themselves away from it. But despite the opting out, all the EU member states are forced to pay a price too high from the point of view of economy, production, employment, and most of all, sovereignty. We must realize that we are at war, a war waged against our people by the ECB, by the European Commission, and an elected establishment. We do not live in democracy. It's a European dictatorship, and we have the duty to resist and to defend ourselves, to react and to save us. We must free ourselves. They will not have our lives. They will not have our countries. They will not have our future. The countries inside the European Union can use Article 50 of the Consolidated Treaty of the European Union, which allows to exit from this European jail with a negotiation process. Will it cost? Probably yes. But what are we paying to be slaves and starved? We see social tensions inside European countries, and we could also feel the dangerous seeds of hatred that can stop a peaceful coexistence for years to come. If we want to prevent conflicts, we must be brave and responsible. We must exit from this EU that condemns our countries and our lives. It's time to become free and sovereign peoples. They will do everything to stop us. It's clear. But the ideas of those who work for the good of the people can never be arrested. We cannot remain with folded hands. Everything we want is beyond our fears. We need to gain freedom with the withdrawal from the EU immediately.